Well, we're halfway through the year, and it's customary to do a half of the year top 5 list for the best 4K Blu-rays. This list is going to be based on audio and video as a whole together. So if you say, for instance, why isn't Jaws on the list? It looks amazing. Well, it could look great, but not sound so hot. And vice versa. I've also not seen every single release that came out this year, so I could very well have missed something. This is also my personal list, so your list is likely to be different. Anyways, before we jump into it, if you're into these 4K reviews and audio and video equipment reviews, then be sure to tap that subscribe button for new weekly videos. Kicking off the list at number 5 is Terminator Dark Fate. We gave this one an 8.7 for video and a 9.5 for audio. It's got a 2K DI and it's really clean and oftentimes a very crisp looking transfer. If you're into looking at wrinkles and how detailed facial features are, Sarah Connor should be right at the top of the list. I mean, those wrinkles are perfectly rendered and sometimes a little too detailed. Since we're talking about close-ups, Arnold's face half blown off is probably the most detailed I've seen yet. It's bloody, it's gooey, it just looks good. The HDR usage also makes this a bright transfer. If you need your eye-blinding specular highlights, the explosions will have you flinching for sure. Audio-wise, this has got a killer Atmos mix. The plane sequence is one of the best parts of this movie. You got things floating around you in all directions for that real immersive feeling. The bass response is demo-worthy from every explosion to Grace swinging that chain around. It digs super low and hits real hard. It's what you'd expect from a Terminator movie. If you're into big-time action flicks, then this movie should be in your collection. In at number 4 is Bloodshot. This gets a 9 for video and a 9.5 for audio. It's also got a 4K DI. This is a clean, digitally shot movie. I think it was shot in 8K and it looks it because it's very detailed throughout. If you're someone that doesn't like film grain, this is right up your alley. Some of those digital effects looked awesome in this. How could you not like the way his face got blown off? And of course, there's those really cheesy CGI effects. HDR brought out those deeply saturated reds, and explosions and gunshots can be intensely bright. Black levels ran deep and bumped up the visual contrast, giving this movie some nice pop. The Atmos mix I thought was one of the best sounding movies I've heard this year. There's some good ambiance in the surround channels, and that tunnel scene is full of bullets whizzing by with some of the best sounding bass on this list. The musical score though is pretty forgetful. I'd say this is in the same category as Terminator Dark Fate. It looks and sounds awesome, but the movie itself is mediocre. Still, if you want to show off your home theater setup, Bloodshot is tough to beat. In at number 3 is The Invisible Man. We gave this an 8.9 for video and a 9.4 for audio. It's also got a 4K DI. For such a low-budget movie, I was surprised about the AV quality. It's another movie for the folks that hate film grain and like that clean, digitally shot look. I know I mentioned this in the full review, but man, some of those close-ups, just like Terminator Dark Fate, are a little too detailed. The tiniest details like skin imperfections, eyeball veins, are all rendered exceptionally clean. The digital effects, or rather invisible effects, look better than most big-budget movies, and there was some very clever camera work too. Now, this isn't an HDR barn burner with some crazy HDR colors. It's quite the opposite. It's a lot of blacks and muted tones, so black levels and shadow detail are a very important visual aspect. And this movie delivers with solid blacks, with maybe a little noise in the very darkest shots. But overall, clean visuals all around. As for the Atmos audio, it's one of those movies that rely on subtlety rather than extravagance. You'll hear a soundstage full of cleverly placed sounds that give this movie a creepy, tense atmosphere. Effects come from all around and tie together the visuals perfectly. This is a must-have movie if you've got a capable surround setup. Coming in at number 2 is Call of the Wild. Hey, I never said these were all great movies, but this is a great looking movie. We gave this a 9.3 for video, an 8.4 for audio, and it's got a 4K DI. This is another movie I didn't think was going to look all that good. This is probably the crispiest movie I've seen on the list. I'm talking clean, sharp lines, an ultra-detailed picture, and some very clean, detailed, fake-looking CGI. I'm talking about the dog, of course. As for the HDR, it does dim the picture a bit, but you do get some natural colors with smooth gradational tones. It won't blow you away, but it's a tighter presentation than the regular standard Blu-ray. The Atmos mix I thought was really good too. Since a lot of the movie does take place outdoors, you will hear a lot of outside atmospherics. The cave run is one of the best parts of this mix, with sounds that surround the entire listening area. Icicles drop within the lower channels, and there's an avalanche seemingly coming above your head. It's got solid bass when called for, and everything always matches the visuals on screen. If you need a movie to show off how detailed 4K movies can look, then Call of the Wild will be a very tough one to beat. And finally, in at number 1 is Joker. Did you see that one coming? We gave this a 9.6 for video and 8.4 for audio, and it's got a 4K DI. It's also the only one on the list that's 185 by 1, so you won't have those big black letterbox bars, which I know a lot of you guys hate. Now, this film was shot digitally, but it does have an almost film-like appearance due to whatever color grade or lenses they've used. So at times, it can be digitally sharp and detailed, and other times have that soft cinematic look. Overall, it looks amazing with details just as good as Call of the Wild. HDR bumps up the color saturation, which is mostly darker tones. There really isn't anything colorful about the film unless you count some of the fires towards the end. So there are some bright specular highlights from the flames and lights and reflective surfaces. HDR also helps to retain better shadow detail, which is important seeing as how dark this movie is visually, and it is a noticeable improvement over the regular Blu-ray and the digital streams. As for the Atmos audio, I think the best part of this mix is the hauntingly fantastic musical score. It's got layers and nuances and spreads the soundstage outwards in all directions. You'll get mostly light ambiance through most of the film, so don't expect any crazy action. It's the music that counts in this one. Listen, if you're a home theater fan or a film fan, then Joker is a must-have in your collection.
This is exactly how I imagined it.
So those are our top 5 picks for the best looking and sounding 4K Blu-rays thus far in 2020. Do you guys anticipate anything that's coming up that might knock off any of these titles off this list? And what's in your top 5 list? Leave a comment and let us know. Now, if you want to grab any of these titles, I'll leave some links for them in the video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can find us on social media. And if you want to support the channel and get exclusive content or great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys again in the next one.